Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Moms Living a Life They Love Summit, where I am interviewing 21 moms who have it all: a flourishing family, a fulfilling career, and a ton of fun in the process. Super excited about today's interview with Dr. Amy Baxter. She is a full-time entrepreneur, a mom of 3 teenagers, and she comes from the world of medicine. So she was an emergency pediatrician and also a pain researcher. So Dr. Amy, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Brooke. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's just get right into it. So I know that you kind of started your family and your career simultaneously at the same time. So take us back to the beginning. Where did you begin?
Well, the family began in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was doing my residency, and due to bad planning, I got married my first year of residency, and we had our first child exactly 1 year later. Ironically, on Labor Day, which was less funny at the time than it is now. But we had planned to wait until after training to have kids, and once we got started, we just decided to jump on the roller coaster. So our first son, Max, was born in my second year of residency. Our second son, Miles, was born in my first fellowship, and our daughter Jill was born in the second fellowship. So I have a 19, 17, and 14-year-old now.
Oh my goodness. So how were you able to have 3 kiddos and keep moving forward in your medicine career? I mean, I can't imagine the time and commitment that all of those responsibilities take. How did you do that?
Well, in some ways, I think that I was able to do 2 fellowships because of the maternity leaves. I was blessed to be in a program that had 3 months maternity leave, and while you had to make that up at the end, those 3 months of uninterrupted time doing something different with my brain than being in medicine rejuvenated me and gave me the wherewithal to actually go further. So I think that one of my current mantras is that really generous maternity leaves make people much more productive. But there were some things that the time constraints caused that will probably scar my children forever. So there was one particular rotation. In medicine, you do things 1 month at a time. And the mantra is you can do anything for 1 month. So there was 1 month where I had to be at the hospital at 6 a.m. And my husband, who's a child psychiatrist, was flying out of where we lived at that time in Virginia back up to a job in Dayton, Ohio that he'd gotten when I was in residency. So I had to be at the hospital at 6. I didn't have anybody else helping me, and the daycare opened at 6. So what we did was we figured the kids don't really stink in their clothes, so we put them in their clothes for the next morning, and they slept in their outfits for the next day. I would wake them up. I would be at the daycare at 5:55 with 2 juice boxes and 3 breakfast bars and a bottle. And as soon as the people showed up, I was like, all right, here you go, bye. And then I would zoom over to the hospital and be 8 minutes late. To this day, my children sleep in their clothes for the next day. And they realize it's not normal, but we have pretty much had a pajama-free life. Why buy pajamas when they're just going to sleep in their clothes anyhow? We own an extensive collection of sweatpants.
Yeah, sweatpants that are both like sleep pants, but also are kind of like outside sweat, like nowadays they make really stylish sweatpants.
Yeah, it's amazing because the kids can sleep in any kind of uncomfortable clothing, and they've just gotten used to it. So it's the true bring up a child in the way they will go, and when they're older, they're still going to sleep in their clothes.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. So that sounds like a hectic morning, by the way, being somewhere by 5:55 in the morning, dropping the kids off, and then going to your fellowship all day long.
Well, mind you, he was out of town for a couple of days at a time. So we coined the phrase consecutive parenting units, or CPUs. And it really isn't about how many days you're gone, it's how many CPUs. So if you've got to do the morning and the bedtime and the morning and the bedtime, that's 4 CPUs.
Okay. How did you balance that with your partner? It sounds like he has a really big career as well. You both have busy careers and 3 children. And it sounds like you developed somewhat of a system and some communication around how you do it. Can you share what that looks like?
The nice thing about his job is that he only worked 2 days a week. So it was a lot easier to be accommodating when I knew that he was going to be handling laundry and handling just about everything else when he got back. But you can do anything for a month. You can sometimes do anything for a year or two. But there were days that I came back from being on call and literally fell asleep on my front porch because I forgot my keys and he wasn't going to get back in town for a few hours. The mailman was like, "Hey, Doc, rough night." And sometimes you just have to do things not well, but expediently until you get to a place where you can do them well. Mm-hmm. The great thing is that we learned early in our marriage, arguments are really about thresholds. If one person's threshold is that things should be this clean and one person's is this clean, this person's always going to start cleaning before this person does. And then you get in the I'm always cleaning. And this person doesn't really realize that things aren't tidy. So once you realize it's just that your thresholds are breached, then you can really negotiate. He hated it when I left coffee grounds someplace, and I hated it when he would clean up things and I wouldn't know where they were, and I knew exactly where I put it. It was to the left of the bottom of the stairs under that piece of clothing. So being able to negotiate by realizing that there's nobody who's shirking their duties, there's nobody who's not being fair. It's just that we have different thresholds of when we notice things. Once we figured that out, it made it much easier to balance what we each needed to do.
Amazing. I love it. So it's all about the threshold.
Thresholds and the assumption that both of you want to make things fair and that the other person's happiness is essential to your own. So if they're not happy, you're not happy, and you both have to figure out ways to fairly make it so you're both happy.
Absolutely. I love that. So as you move forward in your career and your family is growing and your husband is moving forward in his, what are some of the really challenging obstacles outside of just, the 10 I can think of on the top of my head based on your story? What's the most challenging thing that you came up against in balancing career and family?
The balancing act is harder when you really think that you're going to be balanced. There's never balance. Maybe if you took a snapshot, you'd have one moment where it looks like everything is in perfect array, but it's constantly in motion. The biggest joint decision that we had to make and the biggest source of friction was moving from Dallas to Atlanta. I was really clinically happy in the job I was in, and he was really clinically unhappy. And making the decision and realizing that it was likely that I would be satisfied in a bunch of different places, but that his unhappiness and not having a lot of other options where we were drove us to move back to Atlanta, which is where we had met. I think in most people's married careers, there comes a time when one person has to sacrifice their optimal situation for something that is tolerable. And so in that particular situation, his was intolerable, mine may have been optimal, but moving to Atlanta was something that was tolerable and became fantastic for both of us. Happy people tend to be able to make their situations happy in most places. So if you find a pattern, then a different solution probably makes sense. But when you have an outlier situation where somebody is just particularly unhappy, sometimes you have to sacrifice your own optimization to be able to get a greater good in the end. And I do think in many relationships I've seen, there have been those situations where when it's a one-off, sometimes you just have to make a big change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so how did you turn lemons into lemonade in Atlanta?
Well, it certainly wasn't lemons into lemonades. It was limes into lemons, and I slightly prefer limes. there were lots of amazing things about being back in Atlanta, the best of which was that I was in a private practice group. I was able to be controller of my own destiny in terms of doing research without having a hierarchy that I had to adhere to. And the best of all is my parents are here. So when you've got 3 small children that you've been handling on your own, it's a constant, are they going to kill each other, or am I going to accidentally forget one someplace? So when you're back in a place where you've got backup, that was the best thing about the early years of being back in Atlanta.
Okay, awesome. So how did Buzzy come to fruition?
Well, first of all, Buzzy is a small vibrating device that's used to block needle pain. And Buzzy has the vibration unit, and it has a little ice pack, and the two go together. And when you're going to give a shot, you put it on, let it buzz, slide it up, and then do the shot. Buzzy came about because when my 4-year-old had to get, at that time 4, it's Max, the oldest, but he had to get his vaccines. And I'm a needle pain researcher, so I knew exactly how to give his vaccines and have the nurse do everything and say the right words and make it not hurt. And maybe I could kind of educate the nurse a little as a pediatrician, giving her some pointers. And she was having none of that. She said, "You better sit there and be still, or this is really going to hurt." And I jumped into education mode. I was like, "Well, actually, we don't use the word hurt. It's better to say bother. And he's got numbing cream." And she said, "Yeah, that stuff don't work." And jammed him in 4 on one day. And after that, he became afraid of needles. So both of us were a little bit betrayed by the whole situation. It just wasn't what we expected. And he became physically ill when he had to go to the doctors. And I started thinking of ways to rapidly decrease pain that parents could do so you don't have to be at the mercy of whatever the pediatrician's office or nurse wants to do. I was thinking about blocking pain when you have a burn and you put it under cold water, and tried to think about, donuts of running water where the shot's going to go, or something else messy, never worked out. And then one night after I had an overnight emergency shift, I was driving home from the hospital and my steering wheel was vibrating because our wheels weren't balanced. And as I had my hands on the steering wheel, when I got in and reached for the front door, my hand was numb. So I was like, you don't need running water to block pain. You just need vibration. So we ended up with putting frozen peas and a yellow and black massager on top of it. And my kids couldn't feel anything when I was leaving pokes on their hands. So, that probably tells you that I'm not Mother of the Year because I'm willing to put pokes on my kids' hands to experiment. But that was how Buzzy was born. And I used the combination of cold and that little yellow and black massager when they had shots, and that worked. That was in Dallas. When we moved to Atlanta, I started doing prototypes. We borrowed cell phones that were dead, and the whole family took them apart, especially the kids, and we found the motors that made the vibration work. And using all of that together, we finally came up with something that looked like a little bee, and we could take it to the doctor's offices. And the cool thing was, because I was in a private practice, they, first of all, had let me keep all the intellectual property. And second of all, they let me have the freedom to apply for a national grant called the Small Business Innovation Research Grant. So I got $1.1 million from the NIH to study and prove that Buzzy didn't just work for my kids because of placebo effect, that it actually did work for decreasing the pain of vaccines.
Wow, that's amazing. So
Thanks.
I love that, and this is becoming a little bit of a theme on the summit, which is so cool. Moms developing products out of a need that they have with their kids or with their families, and how brilliant.
Over and over again, being in the world of mom entrepreneurs, I see this story that people need something to exist so badly that they will derail their lives, they'll change their trajectories, but if their kid needs something, they'll do it. And the coolest thing is that they don't just do it for their own kids. Moms help other moms. I think that one of the memes in our society today is mean girls and women picking on each other and women being catty. the reality I've seen is that once you've got kids, moms support other moms. You realize how exhausted you are. You realize how much you need the tribe, the neighborhood, the village. And moms who invent something for their kids rarely let it stop there. Once you know you've got something that can help other people, moms are so much more likely to try to get something out there to help other moms.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's hopefully a shift that we can continue to be a part of and continue to see, is that instead of comparing and putting each other down, we're lifting each other up and we're being resourceful and helpful and things like that. But obviously Buzzy has helped enough people such that you've gone full-time entrepreneur. So tell us about that transition.
Right. Well, I started the business in 2006. And I filed the paperwork and filed the patents and put in the application for the grant. Didn't get the grant. So I rewrote the grant, and at that point I had a more sturdy prototype. So I got a different grant to study that in the emergency room. We found that Buzzy was twice as effective as cold spray for IV pain. It made it easier to get IV access. Didn't get the grant, the big grant again. Then I applied again a third time, and finally this time we got the grant and were able to move forward. Now, we launched in May 1st of 2009. I kept thinking that somebody would pick up the product, would acquire us, and would run with it so that I could go back to being a doctor and an academic. Mm-hmm. People didn't realize the importance of needle fear. If you're born before 1983, we only got 6 injections or fewer, and we got them before we were 2, so we don't remember. So I realized as this process went on, it's not about the pain, it's about the fear, and we have now 36 injections by the time kids are 6. So needle fear is now 63% of kids. It used to be 20. And with that increase in needle fear, I became aware that advocacy was as important as Buzzy. So I did a TEDx talk about the rise and consequences of needle phobia. I did a TED Med talk talking about some of my NIH data that I then went back to analyze to figure out why these kids were becoming afraid. It turns out it wasn't the number of injections, it was how many you get on the same day between the ages of 4 and 6 years old. Because between the ages of 4 and 6, you cannot think abstractly. Things are concrete. You don't really have an intellectual ability to abstract. And that's also the age where you conceive of your body as kind of a big bag of squishy stuff. And so if you poke it too much, all the squishy stuff may come out. And because you can't abstract, whether it's being stung by wasps or bitten by a dog or having 4 needles on the same day, if you get overwhelmed and terrified, you don't have a good mental system to rationalize and let yourself know that that's okay. So that's why all phobias tend to happen between around age 4 and 5, and it's just unfortunate that our immune systems need the boosters then. But the cool thing was the kids that got 1 a whole bunch of different times, or 2, none of the kids who got 1 were in the high fear quartile. And if you got 2 shots a couple of times, only 9% of those kids ended up being afraid of needles. So kids are very resilient. But this realization that advocacy and really changing the world, not just by making a pain device, but making people aware of what was going on, started to become more of a part of my life than practicing medicine. I think there's 3 ways that you can really change public health. It's doing research, making legislation, or being an innovator. And I began to feel like I wasn't making as big of a difference with as many people seeing patients, and it was certainly exhausting me and making me crabby and losing compassion. So the key thing that made me decide it was the right time to flip over was that we were invited to an AARP conference. That's a different demographic than Buzzy usually. You don't think that seniors are going after a vibrating bee, but we went, and while we were there, we quickly realized the question was not, are you afraid of needles? It was, do you hurt? And everybody hurts. It's the REM song. So pretty soon we were putting Buzzy on people's bunions and on their trick fingers and on their ankles, and they'd get this really thoughtful look, and then they'd walk around for an hour and come back, and we sold out. So around that point, it was just this lightning bolt of, if you can block needle pain and little kids who've got all this other fear stuff going on, knee pain is easy. And we worked for the next 2014 to 2015 developing a system that adults would buy and adults would take for knee pain. And in that time, some of the colleagues I worked with at the emergency department had to get knee surgery, knee replacement. And one of them was in recovery and didn't want to take any kind of drugs. So I jury-rigged something together for him, and he used it, and he said, that was what got me through. So that's where I decided to pivot to VibraCool. So it's a really big cuff for tendonitis or needle pain or tennis elbow, but it's got really big ice packs that freeze solid, and then you overcome the stiffness and the decreased blood flow from ice with the same kind of high frequency vibration that Buzzy has, but then you can put it on for 20 minutes and the pain will be gone for hours. So once I realized I had a platform rather than just a vibrating bee and started thinking about the risk benefit and contribution, it made more sense to stop practicing medicine. So I gave notice in December of 2015 and quit practicing almost a year ago in March.
Wow. And how has that kind of changed your day-to-day life and how you juggle being a mom and being an entrepreneur?
I've discovered I love making sandwiches for my kids before they go to school. I had no idea. And there's so many moments of parenting that are ephemeral. You've got a little cloud that passes over your child's face, and unless you catch it and ask right then, they process it or they talk to somebody else or they just absorb it, but it's not as good as being able to help them deal with all of those little moments. And in the past year, I've been so much less stressed and so much happier just being a full-time entrepreneur and not practicing medicine. Most of it is because I get to see my kids so much more often, and I get to be part of those little ephemeral moments where they need somebody to help them process right that minute.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so cool, this story of, you creating a product out of a need and then becoming an advocate and really having this true desire to help people on a larger scale, which then led to you having more time with your family and reconnecting to things that you didn't even know you loved. And that was never really like the main purpose. The main purpose was to help people, and all these cool things have kind of happened as a ripple effect.
Yeah, and the other part too is to not be burned out. I mean, you hear people talking about me time, and I think most mothers go, what is that? There's so much going on that, of course, you end up putting yourself last. And being a full-time entrepreneur, and then 2 or 3 days a week, I would leave work at 3:30 at Buzzy and then drive to the hospital and work until 1 in the morning and then come back and do Buzzy the next morning and then do a weekend shift. So sometimes when you are really burned out, the key is not to back off, it's to cut something out. And it's a lot easier to just decide when you're feeling like you're not doing any of your jobs well enough, feeling like if I were just doing this, I would so be getting A's, but I'm a BB plus mom, mother, wife, worker, producer, friend, all of those things. And sometimes you just have to decide to cut some chunk of something out so that the other things you can flourish and feel like you're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm. How did you make the decision of what you were going to cut out? Because it sounds to me like you were doing a lot of really important things. So what kind of words of wisdom would you share with women who they're at that point? They are at burnout. They're, feeling like they're a B plus, and they know something's got to go, but they truly feel like, what can I give up? I don't know that I can give anything up. What would you recommend?
This is not going to necessarily reflect well on me, but when I tried to think about what was the most important thing, was it how I viewed myself as a wife, how I viewed myself as a mother, or how I viewed myself as an agent of change, I most valued my own definition as somebody who could change the world. Mm-hmm. And whether I accomplished that or not, that was the thing that I knew I would be most proud of. I know many women who I respect, and I think it sounds and probably is a more noble thing, who they want their main thing to be a good mother. Mm-hmm. And others I know really want to be good at their job. But for me, the physician, the part of being a physician was gratifying, but on the day-to-day basis, I just didn't feel like I was changing things as much, one patient at a time. And it was important to me to change as many people's lives as possible. So that was what made the decision. And it was very clear that the possibility of launching Vibracool to decrease opioid use and to give people power over pain and to figure out something that's not a pill that actually has strong research and physiology behind it, that was a really clear decision. The decision to let people down because I took their space in training, because I was one of a very finite number of pediatric emergency doctors, and to quit working, that was really a hard ethical decision. But my daughter said, you know, Mom, there's 50,000 people giving themselves shots every night with Buzzy all over the world. Your karmic book is balanced. You can quit practicing if you want to. And I didn't realize at the time, but in retrospect, I really wanted to quit practicing.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I think the piece that really stands out so much to me is, you know, as a mother, because you valued being an agent for change, that still allows you to be an amazing mom. But, you know, I believe that when we kind of honor all these parts of ourselves that are really important, we end up being a better mom anyway. But a lot of times moms feel like, okay, so I'm a mom and I identify being a mom and I want to be the best mom. And if I want to pursue this dying passion around being an agent for change, it lessens my ability to be a mom. And I want to challenge that notion and say, when we become what we're meant to be or what we want to be, we actually end up being a better mom, a better wife, a better friend, a better person, because we're whole.
Right. You're so absolutely correct. You know, the secret is children are narcissists. They're totally into themselves, and they aren't going to notice that you're doing something else. What they do notice is having something to tell their other friends in school about, you know, my mom's at this, my mom's at that, and making moments that they will remember is so much more important than constant presence, because they are so often unaware if you're just there. But if you make specific moments that they remember and then take pictures and make books of them and talk about them, you can do amazing quality parenting that makes the kids remember what their family life was like without having to spend constant hours just being instantly available. One of the things that was interesting the other night was my son was filling out college applications and said he had to answer what his traditions were in the family. And I was thinking about all of the things that we have done. You know, on Halloween, we make spooky cupcakes with the neighbors, and we make a dish at Christmas called Rippin' Chicken. And we have Purim that we celebrate with a particular group of friends. The things that he remembers about his childhood are all of these really finite, specific things. If you check in and touch base with your kids enough to know where they are emotionally and to be there to support them, that doesn't take that much time. And what they remember is feeling like they can talk to you about those things and the specific traditions that really make the difference for ongoing memories of what their childhood was.
Absolutely. And I think going back to your point earlier, when we're not burnt out, we're able to be more present in those finite moments and to really enjoy them and to like remember, take a snapshot in our mind of what that family moment was. Whereas when we're juggling too many things, we might be at the table, but we're not really at the table.
Yeah, mindfulness is a buzzword in the last 5 years or so, but it is so critical. I was with my, when I remember that when I was quitting breastfeeding my daughter, so I knew she was going to be the third, I wasn't going to have any more, and I made a really dedicated effort of trying to remember everything about that last time, everything about that moment, and I still remember it. But there were times when I was in fellowship, I don't have any memory of her crawling. I have pictures, but I don't have actual memories. So I think that it's not just creating something for the child to remember in special events. I think it's also carving out special moments for ourselves and making memories for ourselves of the parenting experiences that we're going to value.
Mm-hmm. That's so huge. And I agree with you. Mindfulness is another thing that's really emerged as a theme in this interview series. And it's not just to use it as a buzzword, but really, truly, if you're not able to slow down and be present with the things that matter to you, then something's got to give.
Mm-hmm.
Something's got to give. And I heard your message loud and clear. Like, it might not be shaving something down. It might be removing something altogether from your plate. It might be removing something really big that you've identified with, like you're practicing medicine. It might be removing negative people or negative energy from your life. It might take courage and it might need to be bold, but you got to be really protective of your time and your energy and really kind of store that for the things that matter most.
Yeah, I think that the hardest part, because it's a slippery slope and getting overwhelmed and stressed, the hardest part is having some key lines in the sand. Because once you start getting depressed, the energy to make a big, bold change is taken away.
Yep.
So realizing things like, trite as it may seem, but if you do gain 5 or 10 pounds, and you just can't get them off, maybe there's something that you need to cut out so you can do more exercise or focus on it or not have 2 drinks a night. You know, is there something that's changed that you can let that be a hard line in the sand? Because for me, I wish I had quit practicing about a year earlier, because it took me a good 6 months to regain some of the compassion and the patience and just to get rid of irritability. If I realized earlier how burned out I was, it would have made it easier to get that time back. So I think one thing that is important is listen to your friends and realize if you're seeing your friends a lot less often than you were, but the subtle cues that you're getting less happy because you're getting more overwhelmed, those are things that are hard to determine. But once you realize they're there, that's your key to make a bold change.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, we've talked about a lot of helpful tips for moms who are, juggling being a mommy in a career or are thinking about doing so. And so I really appreciate you, just sharing your story of your path with being a mom and being, a professional in medicine and now an entrepreneur, and also just sharing some tangible ways of thinking or being or doing things that, free up some time and space to do the things that matter. And I want folks in the audience to have an opportunity, if they haven't already seen and used your product. I know you're doing a giveaway, so tell us a little bit about your giveaway and where folks can find Buzzy and all the other products that you've created.
Sure. So this is a critical thing for any mom to know about your kid when they have pain. The components for a kid of pain, it's not just the physical pain. It's actually a little Venn diagram of circles. There's pain, there's fear, and there's focus. So you can't just take away the pain. If your child is anxious or afraid of something, you've got to find a way to deal with that. And then the best way to deal with fear is to empower them to know that they have the ability to deal with their own pain and to give them something to focus on. So one of the things that I invented and these have now been tested in 3 different studies, are distraction cards. So when you use a Buzzy or Lady Buzz and the distraction cards together, it decreases needle pain 88%. So I'm going to, on our buzzyhelps.com site, anybody who uses the password CARDS, capital C-A-R-D-S, will get a free set of distraction cards when you get a Buzzy. So the way you use them together is, if your child's really nervous, you start off by, we've got some cool things that are going to make this better, but a very important question: which monkey is wearing lipstick? And you surprise them with it. So once you do that, then while they have the Buzzy on and are about to get their injection, you're reading the questions on the back. And so you're asking questions like, okay, well, how many monkeys have glasses? How many monkeys are touching the bed? And they're engaging with you and playing while they're getting the injection. So this takes care of the focus, and knowing that you have a plan takes care of the fear, and then the Buzzy reduces the pain. So whether it's taking a splinter out, whether it is cleaning off a scrape, anything like that, always approach it with pain, fear, and focus. So our giveaway is, if you go to buzzyhelps.com, then you get and use the cards, and the promo code will give you a free set of the normally $6.95 distraction cards. For vibracool.com, if you have arthritis or knee pain or tennis elbow or plantar fasciitis, that's just at vibracool.com. And unfortunately, I'm not sophisticated enough to be able to make a coupon code for that site, but these at least will be something that will enormously enhance the value of Buzzy for a kid that's afraid. But for free, if you go to buzzyhelps/for/children and scroll down, if you're one of the 63% of parents whose kids are afraid of needles, there are 4 evidence-based cards that you can download, and those PDFs have 7 secrets for shots and magic tricks for needle sticks and advanced needle fear, and then infant immunization. So all of it is data that makes it easy for you to have a bunch of different things to try.
Oh my gosh, these things are so, so, so helpful. Thank you so much. And we have all the codes and the instructions at the bottom of this email that you guys received today to opt into the interview. But brilliant. I mean, I've got a baby on the way, and I'm getting, for sure, the Buzzy cards. I mean, I remember that being traumatizing for both me and my child with my first one. So thank you for putting this out into the universe and for sharing.
Take it with you for labor. So you can get it rubbed up and down on your spine. Helps a lot.
Yes. Okay.
It's all the same pain nerves. It's all the same pain.
A triple win for this mom. But, Dr. Amy, thank you so much for sharing your gift with the world, and for being an agent of change and creating this amazing product, and for today sharing your story and your insights with moms that are watching. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for doing this. It's great to have so many different people with perspectives that can give advice that'll resonate with somebody.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, we will be in touch real soon.
Bye.
Bye.